welcome to another night with me, A Queen, here in the She Shack. It is Thankful Tuesday. It is Thankful Tuesday, and I absolutely love Thankful Tuesday. You hear me say it every single week on Tuesday, but I'm so excited about it, and I love it so much because not only do I get an opportunity to hang out with you guys, but I also utilize that time to be reflective, to look back on some things that I'm thankful for, and I use that in replacement of complaining about something. Oftentimes I don't know if this happened for any of you, but I found so many times when I'm in a tough spot and I get frustrated, I start complaining about, well, this would have never happened if this one did this, or if I would have did that, or so forth and so on. So I utilize this day that helps me get through the rest of the week, and each day labeling it as something motivational, inspiration, filled with hope, perseverance, and wisdom. So I know I promised y'all tonight that it was going to be a special guest here tonight. Unfortunately, for reasons that is out of her control, she was not able to join us. So my husband
gotta settle for me.
Came and settled in with us here in the She Shack just to join the conversation. And I honestly like when he sits in on the She Shack because it's not just about topics that affects women. It's about topics that affect people. And tonight we're going to be talking about a kind of a heavy topic, but it's filled with a lot of motivation and inspiration and a story of perseverance and wisdom as well. So tonight we're going to be talking about growing up without the emotional comfort of a parent. That could be growing up without that emotional comfort, that affection. If your parent or parents weren't affectionate or is not affectionate, that's what we're going to be discussing tonight. This topic is like one of those, it's one of those. This topic was actually, that was actually kind of handpicked for the scheduled guest, but I can also relate to having an absent parent and also having a present parent that was emotionally absent and emotionally abandoned me. I can talk about what that looked like from a childhood perspective, but I can also talk about the impact on that in my adulthood and me also being when I became a parent.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. That's the topic of tonight's show. But it's like, this is like the hottest season for like breaking news, everything from tragedy to
You know what I find crazy? You heard about the last mass shooting about I think at a bank. And he shot, I don't know if he killed the people or not, but it's about 4 or 5 people. I think he killed 4 or 5 people. Well, they caught him. Now, the way the media is twisting it, they're saying that they're stressing emotional, mental states was his issue instead of gun reform. Understand what I'm saying?
I think
they traveling more that, the white guy, he lost it because he was getting fired. That's why he did that. His mental state wasn't there, and this, like they have an excuse for him doing that crazy stuff.
But see, the thing about it is, I think people are going to continuously try to find excuses when we are dealing with situations like mass shootings and, just traumatizing events as a whole. But I think that we really kind of, if you really think about it, like just kind of go back and historically look at when they start pulling the word God out, stop allowing us in school to pray, put our hands over our hearts, all this kind of stuff. When you start just, straining more and more and more and straining more and more and more, you don't want to call out for what it really is. And what it truly is, the devil is busy. He busy. Now you think like even if a person cannot, I don't care how smart you are, I don't care how stable you seem to be, you cannot tell me that you are a person in your right frame of mind to walk into a building or into a school and start squeezing. Like it's you just can't. You just can't. There's something, there's some kind of break, there's something going on. There's some kind of chaos in the mind that's happening. Like it has to be.
But how do you protect yourself against it, and how do you fix it if it could be fixed?
Prayer, therapy, prayer.
Everybody not religious.
Prayer is not a religious thing. Prayer is a spiritual thing. It ain't about what religion you are. Whoever that person that I didn't say pray to Jesus. I said prayer, period.
Right,
however, if your prayer is through meditation and oneness, but you still have to have some element that's going to help you balance it all. Or try to have some kind of oneness where you're not, all of us deal with emotional things every single day, but you don't see people, regular everyday people, just walking in every single day. There's millions of people in the world that deal with all kinds of things every single day. Every day. All different kinds of bipolarism, schizophrenia, like all kind of mental health complexities. But you think it's the medicine that's stopping them?
But still, my question is, okay, I get all that. We understand all that exists and all that. But that ain't gonna stop somebody from having an emotional breakdown and decide to go ahead on and have a mass shooting. It could be anything. She's trying to read and listen at the same time.
I am listening.
So, but I don't see that being you can't fix it. I don't think you can fix it, at least. How about that?
I guess you're right. Shawnee just put something up there. She said there's a demographic to these shooters, and they're awfully close to those demographics of the cops that we talked about some weeks ago. I think so, but typically, I agree I agree a little bit. I don't agree all the way. I agree and I disagree. I agree about the demographics, but I disagree because I think it's more to it than just demographics.
Yeah, people go do. If they emotionally drained or they have a emotional breakdown, they're gonna respond accordingly, however they feel their body is. I don't think prayer or anything that could give them a sense of understanding, because their way of comfort or understanding is to do what they about to do. That's almost like PTSD. I was talking to a guy that he got it real bad, and what wound up happening is that he explains how certain things triggers him. So if he feel like he's been triggered or whatever the case would be, he looking for a punching bag. So he would go somewhere.
So that his outlet is to hit.
It's not much so to hit, but to win his emotional war. Was like, okay, I'm gonna belittle somebody that says something crazy. It could be a little kid or anything come along, might say something crazy to him, that might make sense, but to him sound crazy, and he'll lash out, whether it's mentally, physically, or however you want to call it. But that's his coping mechanism. So that's a mental issue when they go in and have a mass shooting, and just that. I don't think prayer and spiritual would fix it all the way. Put it like that.
I mean, I respect your opinion. You know, I don't. I mean, everybody has their own opinion. Respectfully, I do. I personally just believe that there's nothing. There's nothing that's impossible. And when God is in the mix, nothing is impossible. But it was brought. Shawnee pointed out that she was like, there is an obsession. There's literally an obsession with large guns, and that demographically, you see a lot of Caucasian men in rural areas with, I guess, a large amount of assault rifles and artillery.
Well, the issue is, again, I don't think it's demographically. It's just the idea.
There's definitely some demographics.
I don't think it's demographically. You're doing mass shooting. Well, half of the time, mass shooting is coming from the same people. Like this guy here, what's demographic by it besides he worked at that place? Something triggered him off. He got fired. He came back, retaliation. They had a mass shooting at Christiana Mall 3 days ago. Fight broke out, mass shooting. Somebody started shooting. That don't mean that demographically because Christiana Mall. It's just that's the surroundings, the public, your product of your environment. That's all that is. Granted, you got those fools that would come from one state and go to another state and do something crazy. But
you don't really see us going inside of schools and buildings and shooting them up. Like, come on. We just gonna turn a blind eye. We just gonna act like we don't see that part. Like, I mean, if you loosen your belt a little bit and think about it, sometimes when you listen to the news or you listen to the radio and you hear an event happen, culturally, we'll be like, that was a white man or that was a white woman.
Okay.
But so if you thinking that way, it's like, it does play a part. Culturally, we're culturally different people. It's not a racial statement. It's a fact. We're culturally different people, and I guess there's something about us where, I think our strength mentally, physically, and emotionally comes from a place of, like, even our ancestors, that we've always had to be stronger.
I hear all that, but a mass shooting, by definition, there's 3 or more people being killed. So drive-bys when we're shooting, this is your idea of a mass shooting. So you can't say we're not the ones that's doing the mass shooting, because just by example, I just said Christiana Mall, they killed 3 people. That was they live with 3 black guys right now that did for the mass shooting.
We're still not going into schools and killing these kids.
I hear all that, but it's still mass shooters, mass shooting.
I understand. I'll give it what respectfully.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, we'll bet our right arm that it's a white man doing that killing. But, a bunch of us would be a one-armed bandit with that DC sniper.
Listen, we was wrong. We was wrong about the sniper. Okay, we was wrong that time. We was definitely wrong. We was wrong. We didn't get that part right. We was wrong that time. Mm-hmm. So I want us to kind of like just switch gears a little bit and jump into tonight's topic. Okay, and right. So I'm gonna ask you a question. I'm gonna ask you a question. So the question that I posed to you was, how emotionally How affectionate were your both mother and father? Because you grew up with both mom and dad. How affectionate were they in your upbringing, in your childhood?
I guess I guess they was affectionate. I mean, they was tough, but they still was affectionate. I
Tough
mean,
meaning like what do you like?
like they was a little strict. You know, certain things you couldn't do, certain things couldn't go certain places, or whatever the case may be. But
That's boundary setting. I'm talking more about
okay, as far as
affectionate.
affectionate,
You know, like tender.
I still, well, you know, being that my parents are religious or church going folks, hugging and affection is normal. So it's no problem with hugging or telling each other we love you and this and all the other stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
that always was in my upbringing. You know, I mean, to this day, I still tell my daddy I love him. I hug him, I kiss him on the cheek, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
Tell my brother I love him. You know, but it's just something that is in my situation. It's normal to be uh, affectionate, I guess, verbally or whatever the case would be.
Mm-hmm.
And
Physically as well, hugging and
and it don't have to be, you know, like, okay, I'm forced to do this or this or that, or that thing. You know? So,
I'm actually surprised to hear that.
you know,
Honestly, I'm actually surprised to hear that it was an affectionate.
But sometimes words might not be said. You know what I mean? It's just the idea of a look, a nod, or whatever. It don't have to be words. It could just the way they look, or just the way they move about. You know, you understand? Oh, all right, well, we get it. You know, but me, I was raised that because my parents was working parents, and a lot of times, my siblings was more around me than my parents was.
Mm-hmm.
So, or I was hanging in running around up in the streets more than hanging with the parents, you know. But that's how they grew. That's what we all grew, cause the neighbors raised the kids sometimes. So it's the village, you know. We did certain things where you couldn't do, you know, and we walk past one neighbor house, we gotta do something different. Gotta walk past it differently. We can't go that loud mouth doing whatever case it be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, not by Miss Smith house. Quiet down, you know. Or hey, Miss Smith, how you doing? Put the time.
Well, that's definitely during that time. I mean,
Yeah,
I grew up
so
in the same time when we had
so.
like a village,
Right.
but my upbringing was the total opposite of that.
Oh yeah.
Like the total opposite of that. I mean, for a while, my mother was a single parent, but even prior to her being a single mom, I had an alcoholic stepdad
Mm-hmm.
who was emotionally absent. Period. In every sense of the word, where there was no form of affection. There was no I love yous. There was no you're beautiful. There was none of those that existed.
Let me say this. I didn't mean to cut you off, but you know, yeah, I was raised with both parents, but you know, my dad is a minister, so outside of him working, you know, I wouldn't see him get up for go to work, but he would go to work before I wake up. He'd come home at 4 something, and by 6 o'clock, he's doing something for the church. So by the time I go to bed, he'd be coming back in. So a lot of times, I think out of 7 days out the week, I might have spent maybe Saturday mornings going fishing with my daddy. Other than that, he wasn't really around, but he was around because I was involved in church with him, you know. So, but as far as him hanging around in the family and so that, he had other obligations, which I understood, you know what I mean.
So when you was dealing with challenges as a young man, or you know, emerging into, you know, manhood, who did you seek?
I guess a little combination of everybody. You know, from the kids in the neighborhood to the brother, to the sister, to the mama, even some to the daddy. You know, we talk every now and then, and I just took all the different stuff and just made a decision.
So was it impactful in any kind of way, in a positive or not, that you didn't have that, I guess, didn't have more of, or your father wasn't more involved with with your, with the maybe activities you was involved with, or just, when you enter into the dating scene, or even when your body started to change? Like, who did you talk to about sex?
The streets. You talking Holly Grove. You talking Holly Grove. You talking a bunch of kids, and my age range, we all like in a difference of about 7, 8 years.
So you learned about how to make love to a woman from the streets?
Well, mom and daddy didn't tell me about how to make love to a woman.
Well, how did you
That's from life
know?
experience and reading in the streets and talking.
So do you think or could it possibly be because I guess the picture looks different, male versus female, right?
Right.
But do you think that's why some men are more grounded and solid in relationships and not so swiftly to be like players and run around, versus other ones that, ones that are like not that way?
You about right, shorty. That's it. Yeah, I mean, that's the way. That's the way guys back then. Yeah, think about it. Sex education wasn't a big topic back in our days. In the 80s, sex education wasn't big.
I don't know who you was talking to. It was a topic.
So I'm talking about like in the schools and this and all that other stuff.
Y'all didn't have sex ed.
Yeah, we have sex ed, but not at first grade and second grade.
Oh, no, I'm talking about when you started becoming. I'm not talking.
Yeah, but nowadays they got sex aids in kindergarten around here now, in first grade and all that shit. I hate to say it, they do. We wasn't doing all that stuff.
I mean, times have changed. I mean,
right.
Have you seen some of the things that the children are actually being exposed to? That's a whole nother topic. That's a whole nother topic.
Right.
Like,
so you kind of get it where you fit in at. I mean, we learned it. We dealt with it. We laugh at who got burnt. We laugh at whatever situation they had. And we learn from other people's mistakes or whatever.
It's interesting to see how guys handle it, I guess. But for me, I don't know, it was just different for me. Like, I guess, I wanted to have a emotional connection with my father, but there was no father. Like, my stepdad was not interested in being my father. Like, he let me know, like, you're not my child. He played, 52 fake it when my mother would be around. Where my mother would be around, but when my mother wasn't there, he was like very intentional with, you're not my kid. You know what I mean? I think it was so much.
That's hurtful, huh?
That's
where you
emotionally devastating as a child, as a young girl who's like so unsure of like herself, of her, like anything, of your looks. I mean, I don't even think I was even aware of looks per se until the first person told me that I was ugly. You know what I mean? So I always, at that point, I'm just like, I'm ugly then. You know what I mean? Like, I guess, I'm not, as appealing as, this one or that one or that one. Then it was the name calling. It was, the growing, starting to like really grow up and not like looking like anybody in the family. Mm-hmm. So then it's like, well, who do I belong to? You know what I mean? And I don't think it was like, my mother's intention to be like unemotional. I just think that she was, now as an adult, I understand, what she was dealing with. But as a child, or even an emerging young lady, that didn't matter. Right. Like, so if you find yourself, in states where you're uncertain about who you are, there was a time where I was uncertain about my sexuality. I mean, like, and there was nobody to like talk to.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was like, well, here's the blueprint. You go to school, you graduate, you go to college, you go to church, you find a man, you get married, you have some kids, you cook and clean and wash.
The crazy thing, I remember growing up, still in high school, we used to be looking at it like, man, at the rate, number one, we like, all right, I don't think we gonna see 21. Or if we see 21, I don't think you gonna have a.
Hold on, let's say no. So, real quick. So, hey, so we have a Gene that say, hey y'all. So we said hey to you and thank you for tuning in. And then Shawnee said the hard part is when you don't know you should know something because it just is. Oh my God, that is so freaking true. That the hard like when you don't know something because it just isn't in your life. Like, that is so true. Like, not knowing who my biological father was so emotional. Like, it was a daily emotional, like, feeling, being traumatized over and over and over. Like, who are you? Where are you? The uncertainties of, like, do you not love me? Was I not worthy enough? Did you not care enough? Like, it was so many, like, unanswered questions. And it leaves you sometimes in a state where you make bad decisions. You make bad choices about people. You have vulnerabilities that now you don't really want people to see. And so you start substituting those vulnerabilities with other things or other people or a combination of things that...
So let me ask you this here. When a female and wind up being a single parent, whether it's because of the father's deadbeat or it just didn't work or they wanted to go a separate direction, do the kid, will that effect still be on that child later on down in life?
I know that when my mom divorced her first husband, who was an alcoholic, I celebrated. I was immensely, sorry, bro, but I was so happy that they were not, like, I felt, even as a child, I was young, I probably was like 7, but I felt liberated when they went their separate ways. But when my mom remarried my pops, who is, by the way, an amazing, I don't like to use the term stepdad, but just an amazing step-up parent. That's what I would call him. He when they divorced, it was very, very immensely difficult, and I was an adult. I was almost 30 years old, I believe, when my parents divorced, and it was very difficult for me. But you begin to take it personal. I absolutely took it personal. Like, I took it personal that I literally felt like there was something wrong with me. Like, what is it about me that, and it doesn't help the situation when you're on the outside and looking at other people and how they interact with their parents, and you seeing, like, this dynamite single parent mother or single parent father who is like so involved. You know what I mean? The kids they seem to be, have a great connection. And it just build up even more and even more and even more insecurities.
Have you ever during that time brought it to your mother's attention?
Well, I had my great aunt. Like, my mom was, like, I guess in a sense, especially once my mom separated from or divorced my brother's father, and now she's a single parent. We spent a lot of time with babysitters and other family members, right?
Understandable.
So, like, I wasn't aware that I was not being filled into emotionally, I don't think, all the way, because there was a time where my mother wasn't, like, tender. right? But then those things changed as my mother became a single mom. I think her direction was not more so about how to be affectionate, but survival. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so in that process of that, I felt like I just kind of got lost in the shuffle. Got lost in the shuffle of, growing up from the Magnolia Projects to the Callio Projects to the Lower Ninth Ward to the New Orleans. By the time we got to New Orleans East, I'm 18. And, I have now incurred it like I have been exposed to so much other stuff. Like I've been exposed to the streets a little bit. The hustlers, the gangbangers, the hustlers, I had a girlfriend that was into, sex work. So and even there was a point where sex work looked appealing because it was like she's getting, attention that I desired to have. I wasn't, so when I think it was maybe around when I was about 13 years old, I realized that my body was enough to get me some attention. You understand what I'm saying? So I wanted to wear the shorter shorts, the crop top shirts, but you
sound like them prep schools. They roll them down plaid skirts up.
I rolled up my skirt. I used to wear a uniform skirt. I used to roll it up. Hot. She said my mother was super present and involved, but she was not emotionally available at all. Wow, and you know what? That's crazy because oh my God, I can so relate to what you're saying because my mom wasn't super present and always involved, and she was not emotionally available. I don't think my mom was even aware of how unbalanced I was emotionally as a little girl, as an emerging young lady, as an emerging woman, even into my adulthood. Hold on. I still don't think it literally took years of experiencing all kinds of different roller coasters of emotions and a roller coaster over a relationship before we found a happy median. So I'm like, it saddens me to hear that your mom is still not emotionally available because that right there, that's a tough spot. I've actually been there.
So the question would be is how much of the way the mother being raised play a factor on how they raise their kid. Maybe they wasn't shown the emotional side of raising a child or whatever, so they don't show it because they don't know it. And
well, I can say this. I mean, when you can understand, as an adult, and as you grow older and you start to understand why things was maybe kind of the way they were, but as a child, you don't understand that. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, my mother wasn't emotionally available for me as a parent. I was determined to be emotionally available to my kids. Like, I didn't have a problem.
We got different outlets to see all this now with all this social media and everything going on. But back then, when we was coming up, our parents didn't have this type of education outlets that we have and all these pamphlets and stuff.
I understand what you're saying, but it didn't take internet. When I became a mom, we didn't have Facebook, Instagram, none of that stuff. I didn't pick up a book that told me that I needed to be emotionally available to my kids. But I knew what I was lacking and what I was missing and what I didn't have. And I was hell-bent, bound, and determined to do it differently for my kids. Because I didn't want them to feel the loneliness of not having somebody emotionally available to you. Like, to even explain to you that masturbation is normal. Like, it's okay. That's like a natural part of, you like, and to explain it, or to explain what was actually, I had to depend on, like, what was going on in school to find out about a period. What did you say? My mother is a provider. She took care of me well physically, but emotions, oh, child, Patricia ain't got it. And I hear you. I actually hear you with that. My mother was in a time when I was like in elementary school building up, it was she was in a rebuilding phase. She said, I raised my oldest as a single parent, so I tried my best trying to fill that void for her, not having a father, so I had to be so much more. And you know what, Britt? Like, I absolutely, I salute you because I have been fortunate enough and blessed that my husband and I have raised our children together. But if you was to ask our kids about being emotionally available or which parent was emotionally available, hands down my kids will tell you my mom. My dad was not emotionally available to me, period. Most people parent extra in a place they weren't. Parented well. We parent and love from the place of deficit. That's right. If we don't get emotions, we be hell bent to give. And you know what? I learned that I thought that those things of making corrections in areas where I felt that I wasn't like sustained. So when I became a parent, I felt like I had to do those things. I felt like,
but then again, I still go back to our parent age people that they didn't. A lot of them didn't feel that they was emotionally deprived because the way the times were back then compared to now, and that we're different. That is emotion that's been lacking, that we start wanting and desiring. So that's why we do it now. But back then, the parents didn't. That wasn't on the table for them. So
I disagree. I think that they was just uncomfortable with the topics. Like, they did, like, for example, as a young girl, if you was seen speaking to more than one boy, you was fast. You was fast. It wasn't like it wasn't a socialization. Or if you kissed a boy, the first thing that came up, you keep kissing on that boy if you want to and get pregnant and you out of here. Like, it was always those kinds of things. What did you say?
Old man had worms too.
It's like, I'm missing them. You're not keeping up. You gotta go down. It says it's like when we date, we pick the next partner from where the previous partner sucked. My mom was abandoned by my grandma physically, which is why physical provision was so important to her. I absolutely agree with that. I agree that we kind of like try to make up in areas that where we lack that. Mm-hmm. I know for me, I struggled in so many areas, emotionally, spiritually, financially, like even like becoming a parent at 16, because that's when I had my first child. I was not I didn't know what the hell I was doing, to be honest. But once I made a decision that this is it, this is the trajectory of my life. So now I'm like, well, I know I have to provide for her. I know I have to get a job. I know I have to love her. I know I have to support her. And so I feel in that perspective, my mom did do a lot of things to give me the foundation and the blueprint to be a good parent. Like, it's not that I felt that she wasn't a good parent. It's just that, I didn't feel that there was the emotional support that I needed at a fragile time in my life. And I think the most fragile time when I first began to realize how much I needed my mom emotionally was after I actually became a mom. And that's when I realized like how much I internally was lacking. You know what I mean? And wanting to, and desiring to have that support. But I mean, in her way, she felt that she was already giving that support. In my way, I still, I'm still, my mind is still maturing. I'm 16 years old, and I'm still thinking like, it would be good if I had, somebody, telling me different supportive and things like, you can do it, keep going, blah blah blah, this and that. And I didn't have any of those things. She said, so tell me, how do you and Tremaine define a good parent?
You know what, Shawnee, we talking about all Shawnee comments. Shorty to bring her ass back to the she shack, and so she could talk all she wants.
I'm gonna have a
So
topic in mind for
really,
her, but it's not until June, and I was trying to correlate it into the time when she's actually coming down because she'll be here for Tamara's baby shower. So so the question was, how do you define a good parent, Trench?
whip that ass, whip that ass.
That is awful. First of all, it's so funny that you say that because you wasn't whipping that ass when your kids was little.
I was with my kids' ass.
Especially them girls. You told me you couldn't do it.
Well, you did that. That's why you did it.
So what do you think is a good? So I'm gonna ask you a better question. You feel like you had good parents? Your parents are good parents?
Yeah, I think my parents.
Okay, and why do you think that your parents are good parents?
Because the love, the affection, the support.
But you said there was a lack of affection in a sense from your father because he was working all the time and he wasn't there.
But I had an understanding with my parents is that because I knew that my father.
I don't mean to be rude. I'm talking about good parents. Like what makes a good parent?
Can I finish? So like mine like I was basically in my mind raised that well, if both can't be there, at least one of them be there and representing both of them, because we know that because I knew that somebody had to provide, somebody had to be the emotional part of it. But as long as one of them showed up for whatever the case may be, or one of them was there, whether it was my mom or my dad for whatever event, that I understood that they represent both of them because, and they would say, well, so and so had to work, or so and so had this here, what you call them, or they won't make it this time because of X, Y, and Z. So the communication played a big part, and I understood. It wasn't like I was devastated. But I really want this person to show up. No, because I knew that that's the way it worked for my whole.
So you had seen this previously being done with your brother and your sister.
Yeah, we always raised differently.
Okay, so I'm still asking the same question.
What was the question?
What make your parents good parents?
I'm still alive. That's good to me. They stuck.
I'm gonna say, my answer that why I think my mother is a good mother. I can't say parents per se because my biological dad just was not there. Like just point blank, period. And it was emotional traumatizing for me for my dad not to be there. But my mom, what I love mostly about my mom and what I felt that made her not just a good parent but a good mother was that I watched her from being in an abusive relationship where I witnessed her husband attempt to kill her. She was determined to get something better. Like she continuously showed us something better. I remember when we didn't have enough food to eat, I remember that my mother would not eat to make sure that my brother and I did eat. I remember when we didn't have shoes. I remember that my mom was not filled with so much pride that she wouldn't ask. Although she went to the Goodwill, we had shoes when we walked out the store. My mother showed me the strength and the resilience of a woman. And that no matter what comes up, God first, you second, and you take care of everything else accordingly after that. So I believe that I knew that my mom loved me. I was convinced of that. I knew I was loved. It's just that when I was going through the growing pains, when I was going through so many different things, it was the being molested and carrying that shit for years before my mother knew that I was molested. But I felt like when I went there with her and expressed to her what had actually happened to me, at that time, at that point, she was not affectionate. She was not comforting, but and I didn't understand that. It took a long time. It took a lot of and it was the comparison thing because I have a sibling, I have a brother who my mom was emotionally available for all the time.
Yeah,
You know, so
I say the same thing. I mean, is that mine was always supportive, and no matter what I did and how I did it or whatever issue I had, it was there, and they just kept it straightforward. It was raw and straightforward.
So we have a question. It says, at what age did your mom become more than just your mom, but also a whole ass woman? And same to Tremaine about Reverend Trench and being a man as more than just your dad. So I'll tell you when my mom really just became a whole ass woman for me, and it wasn't just about her being my mom. It was an incident that happened. My mom and my pops had gotten divorced. I was still just thinking of my mom as my mom, and so some time had went by. My mom went out with her friends, and she had a gentleman friend, and she brought him back. And they was at the house, you know, chilling, laid up, whatever. And I had to wrap my mind around the fact that my mom is a whole grown-ass woman out here, and that, you know, she still has desires and needs, and I needed to deal with that. I didn't really know what that looks like at first because it was always just my mom and my pops. But when it became my mom being a single woman and mingling and meeting new men and stuff like that, it was like, whoa, this different. It was different for me.
Well, as far as me with Rev, I guess I had that experience way when I was younger because all his old friends were still around, and you could hear all the stories, and even Rev talk his talk, you know, as comical as it might be, you know, you still appreciate it, and you understood the role of being a man, you know. So yeah, I would say at a real young age, from fishing conversation we have, from the long rides conversation.
So he was not dad at this point. This was my dad, a whole grown man. In
he was all that. He was dad. He was a grown man. He was a crazy man. He was a hilarious man.
So you saw this early on, like this was like this was
that
like
man, and his people he grew up with, the way they talk and they tell them stories. They come straight out. Hey, the hell with that. We call it Red, but fuck all that. We know him when he was X, Y, and Z. So that, you know, I remember this story. He did this and did that. Well, see, my dad also played baseball. He played baseball, so he did a whole lot of other stuff. You know, so he was real active and all the other stuff. You know.
So I do believe that your parents' emotional support. I believe it just plays a part in as a whole in making the growing up part easier. I think sometimes as parents, just like what Shoni pointed out, her mother was an amazing provider, and I know Miss Pat was an amazing provider, honey, because she kept you laced. I'm talking about all the time. You can tell that your mother was very involved in your upbringing. She sent you to the best schools. You wore the best of things. And a child like me, on the outside looking in at that, was very like envious. You know, like, dang, I wish I had that bag, or I wish I could have them shoes, or, you know, this or that and the third. But, you know, in hindsight, you know, sometimes hindsight is the best at times. And so I learned a lot through those times, because now I feel like I wouldn't be where I am on the journey that I'm on now if I hadn't like dealt with, you know, those things in my past. Because being a mom at 16, that shit was hard. Like, that was like stupid hard. You know, it was an emotional. You know, I really was trying to figure that out. Wasn't nobody pulling me to the side like, baby, come here, let me tell you, you might want to do this, or you need to do that, or just nobody. Like, I was really fumbling this shit. I was really like trying to figure it out. I was really like, you know what, like I was bumping it along and learning as I, you know, go, and I was a sponge paying attention to things around me and looking at certain stuff, and I'm like, I ain't with that. I'm not doing that. And other things, I'm like, well, maybe I should do more of that. Like seeing seeing Shoni mom and how she physically took care of her kids. That was like something to, for me to incorporate and do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
To mock that with my own kids. I knew my mother was a provider, but my mom wasn't really concerned about if we had the best or not. She was just concerned if we had it. So, you know what I mean? And I get it. She said, because she had me presented so well, it's hard to share with people the total story and experience of being her child. No one wants to hear shit about. Well, I'm going to tell you like this. I think that is...
We don't want to hear it.
I want to hear it. I think it's an open invitation, and whenever you want to sit down and chop this thing out, you can come take a seat at the in the she shack, and we can talk about it, because I feel you. I feel where you're coming from, because compared to what my other cousins and all them was dealing with, my brother and I was presented well too, and you couldn't say nothing about Charlene kids. Her kids. Especially me. The pressure was more on me. Oh, she said our sound went out. Did it come back, Brett?
Well, we an hour in anyway, baby.
She said the sound went out. Maybe I moved. Okay, she said the other one said the sound is out too. The sound is out.
Over an hour.
Is it these things?
No, I think we're over an hour. Well, it is blinking.
It might be the microphones.
Yeah, the microphone's out.
I'm not sure what is happening with the sound, but I'm not sure what's happening with the sound.
It went out at the end.
Yeah, I'm not sure what. She said we're back.
Yeah, we're back.
Okay. Thank you. I don't know what happened with the sound, but thank you for hanging in there with us as we continued our conversation. But what I was saying was to the last statement about not really being able to say anything about your mom, or nobody really wanting to hear that discussion. I said I can absolutely totally relate to that, and the reason why I can is because compared to what life was looking like for my cousins, my younger cousins, because I'm the older one, like having a mother that's addicted to drugs and a father that's addicted to drugs and absent and in and out of jail and all this kind of stuff. It looked like we were doing better than they were. Because people was looking at what was physically on the outside. Oh, they clean. They, seem well dressed. Presented well. Because my mom didn't play. You can carry on a scandal if you want to, but Charlene would beat that ass, and that was just the bottom line. That was just what it was. So we knew not to act up. But what was going on the inside, I think because there was so much going on the outside, they didn't have time to see about what was going on the inside. With what we was as young black girls is dealing with in this era. I grew up in the stages when crack was like rampant. So you saw a lot of kids who was tending to themselves and raising themselves, fending for themselves, and all of that kind of stuff. So it was like, you looking at what's on the outside, and you saying, oh, y'all got it made in the shade, and y'all this and y'all that. But what was going on the inside, I was toe up from 10 floors up. I'm talking about toe up from 10 floors. I ain't gonna lie. Yeah. Toe up. And it took a journey to get, it took going through some stuff and making some horrible ass decisions based on, attention seeking behavior, people pleasing behavior, listen, not saying that,
Yeah, we got it in there.
She said it's out again. I'm not sure why we dealing with sound difficulties. I'm not sure why we dealing with the sound difficulties, but I thank y'all so much for just kind of just continuously hanging in there with us. I think we actually kind of like coming to the end of the show for tonight. We typically like to try to run it for an hour. Sometimes we go over that, but I just want to tell y'all that I'm talking about when we have had a great discussion. I thank y'all for always giving me something else to think about and to look at it in certain ways. It's all about growth. It's all about, spreading love and positivity and getting to the next level. And I can't do that without y'all. I haven't been able, like, every single week, every single day is something that I'm able to be reflective about. Like, I was mad at my mama for a long time. I was upset. But we lost it again though.
Just about,
it again.
Oh,
it's the mics. Okay, so but forgiveness, acknowledgement, and acceptance, and those was the steps that you would love to see Crystal interview me one week. That's cool. I'll make it happen. I'll ask her, because that's my kid, my daughter, so she be in them streets, girl. She definitely be in them streets. Next week, another show. If you haven't had an opportunity to follow us on YouTube, please by all means do so. We are on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and of course on YouTube. Every week, Tuesday night, 7 o'clock, the She Shack is live. I thank y'all so much for tuning in with us, hanging in there with us, engaging in the conversation, and we'll see y'all next week. We love you. Good night.
Good night.
Bye. Shoni, I'm going to make it happen. You can mark my word on it. I'm going to have Crystal to interview me. Girl, I'm going to make sure I got me some liquor for that.